Hey, have you ever stopped and really thought about the date on your phone? Like, where did it actually come from? Or why a year has 365 days? It feels so permanent, so real, but it's not. It's a human invention. Today, we're diving into the incredible story of how we, as a species, learn to capture, measure, and basically control time itself. And I promise you, by the end of this, you are never going to look at a calendar the same way again. All right, first, let's just do a little thought experiment together. I want you to try and forget everything you know about time, just for a second. Imagine waking up tomorrow in a world with no dates. Not on your phone, not on a calendar, nowhere. How would you even know what day it is? I mean, really think about that. No more dreading Mondays, which sounds kind of great, right? But also no New Year's Eve parties, no way to even know when your birthday is. How on earth would you plan a meeting? How would a farmer know when to plant their crops? How could society even function? It seems completely impossible, but for most of human history, that was just reality. So to solve this massive problem, our early ancestors didn't look at a clock. They looked up. They looked at the sky, at the world around them. They didn't measure time, they felt it. In the changing of the seasons, the path of the sun, the phases of the moon, and their first attempts to record it, well, they weren't written on paper. They were built out of something way, way bigger. Yeah, the very first devices that humanity built to make sense of the passage of time. They weren't intricate clocks with gears and springs. They weren't digital watches with batteries. Nope. They were something far more ancient and, frankly, a lot more epic. That's right. Giant, heavy stones, arranged just so, were our very first calendars. And don't think of these as primitive structures. No way. These were incredibly sophisticated astronomical observatories built to read the language of the cosmos. I mean, just look at Stonehenge in Britain. For centuries, people thought it was just this mysterious pile of rocks. But it is a precision-engineered solar calendar. On the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the sun rises perfectly between two keystones. On the winter solstice, it sets perfectly between another pair. And get this, a really cool study from 2022 suggested that its 30 massive sarsen stones might actually represent the days of a month. This thing wasn't just a monument, it was a guide to survival, telling people when the seasons were about to turn. But this incredible stone technology wasn't just happening in Europe, not by a long shot. Thousands of miles away, in ancient India, this whole idea was taken to a completely different level. Here, temples weren't just spiritual hubs. They were unbelievable feats of what you could almost call time engineering. Okay, you have to see this. The Konark Sun Temple in Odisha is the perfect example. It was designed to be a colossal chariot for the sun god. It has 12 pairs of huge wheels, you guessed it, one for each month of the year. Each one of those wheels has 8 spokes, which stand for the 8 tapars, were the major divisions of the day in ancient Indian culture. And these wheels, they're not just for show. They are incredibly accurate sundials. The shadow cast by the spokes could tell you the exact time of day. It's just this beautiful, stunning blend of science, astronomy, and art, all carved into stone. So as societies got more and more complex, just looking at stones and the sun wasn't quite enough. They needed a system, something you could write down and share. And this led to a great celestial debate. Should we follow the reliable, steady sun, or the ever-changing but very obvious cycles of the moon? And this created 2 competing systems. On one hand, you had the lunar calendar. It's based on the moon's cycle, which is about 29.5 days. It was amazing for cultural and religious life because you can literally see the month changing in the sky every single night. The problem is, its year is only about 354 days long, so it gets out of sync with the seasons really fast. On the other hand, you have the solar calendar, like the one the Egyptians and Romans used. It's based on the Earth's 365-day trip around the sun. Super stable, super predictable, and perfect for farming. But it doesn't really line up with those nice visible moon phases. So what do you do? Which one do you pick? Well, ancient Indian astronomers came up with this brilliant solution. They basically asked, why not use both? And so they developed this ingenious hybrid system, the lunisolar calendar, designed to give them the best of both worlds. So how did they solve that problem of the lunar year being shorter? Well, using some incredibly advanced astronomical math, they figured out that if they just added an entire extra month, what's called an audic mas, every 2 or 3 years, they could perfectly realign the moon's cycle with the solar seasons. It was basically a leap month. This made sure that festivals always fell in the right season year after year. It's pretty genius, right? All right, so now let's jump over to the system that most of the world uses today. And its story, well, it's not one of perfect, elegant astronomy. It's a story of Roman chaos, a dictator's command, and a massive historical edit that literally erased days from ever existing. So it all kicks off back in 46 BCE. The Roman calendar at the time was a complete and utter mess. So Julius Caesar, with a little help from his astronomers, brings in the Julian calendar. It set up the 365-day year with a leap year every 4 years. Simple, right? They decided to start counting from year 1, which, fun fact, means there was never a year 0. But for the next 1,500 years, a tiny little error was slowly, quietly building up. You see, the Julian calendar assumed a year was exactly 365.25 days long, but the true solar year is just a tiny, tiny bit shorter. The difference was only about 11 minutes each year. Now that doesn't sound like a big deal, does it? But over hundreds and hundreds of years, those minutes, they really start to add up. By the 16th century, that little 11-minute error had piled up into 10 whole days. The spring equinox, which was super important for setting the date of Easter, was happening 10 days before the calendar said it should. The calendar was officially broken, and Pope Gregory XIII decided it was time to fix it. And the solution was pretty drastic. To get the seasons back on track, they had to make a cut. A big one. By papal decree, the day after Thursday, October 4th, 1582, was not Friday, October 5th. It was Friday, October 15th. 10 days were just gone, skipped. They've vanished from the historical record forever. Can you just imagine the confusion that caused? So this new Gregorian calendar, the one we all use now, it's based on much more precise math. We know the Earth's orbit is really about 365.25 days. So here's how it works. For 3 years, we just call it 365 days. That leftover quarter of a day from each year kind of gets saved up. After 4 years, those 4 quarters make 1 full day, and that's what we add back into the calendar as February 29th. And that, my friends, is why we have a leap year. So we've seen how we got the numbers on our calendar. We invented these amazing systems. We corrected tiny errors. We standardized time across the whole world. But you have to wonder, in doing all that, did we lose something important? And this brings us to a much bigger question about our relationship with time itself. It's a really powerful question, isn't it? We've built all these super elaborate systems to control and manage time, to squeeze it into these neat little boxes of hours and days and years. But are we really in control? Or have our own inventions started to dictate the rhythm of our lives? Think about it. For the people who built Stonehenge and Konark, time wasn't some abstract number. It was a physical experience. The warmth of the sun on their skin, the phase of the moon in the night sky, the turning of the seasons. It was a cosmic rhythm that they were a part of. For many of us, it's just a notification on our phone or a deadline in our calendar app. And it's so important to remember that our Gregorian system, it's not the only game in town. The Indian Panchang, that sophisticated lunisolar calendar we talked about, was developed thousands of years before the Julian calendar even existed and is still used by hundreds of millions of people today. It remains just as accurate, a living, breathing link to a completely different way of seeing time. So the next time you glance at the date, just take a second. Remember the centuries of observation and debate and incredible discovery that are packed into that simple number. And maybe ask yourself, are you just listening to the clock, this system that we invented? Or can you still feel that older, deeper rhythm that our ancestors once read in the stars?